Good morning, everyone, in person here and online. We are happy to have Svetlana Belsky back again, who presented a couple of times successfully for CAMTA, so she's no stranger here. She is a pianist and recording artist. Many of her CDs have unique special themes and were received with critical acclaim. She performed in Europe, Asia, and the US, and in many important venues and concert halls. She is a Steinway artist and was awarded the Outstanding Woman Award for Excellence in Music by the Cook County District in 2019. Today she will present us the program for the Savler Contest 2023, and we are especially excited that Svetlana will introduce pieces from our local piano teachers such as Chris Goldston, Jaroslav Bolembjovsky, Cynthia Papierniak, and Junichi Sato, all serving as board members at CAMTA. And before we start, the chair of the Savler competition, Regina Sirkin, would like to share a few words.
Thank you. Yeah. Hi, everyone. First, I want to review our programs, our traditions.
Can you move back?
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I can sit there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's so. Yeah, but because I receive a lot of emails with the questions about repertoire and mostly about repertoire. So traditionally, we have 4 levels, no age limit. There is 1 required piece, which we decided to do it only music 20th, 21st century, and then 4 other pieces to choose from different periods, traditionally, of course. Now, recently I decided to give like a theme for each year. Last year it was women composers, 2 years ago it was black composers. This time I decided that our colleagues and our friends and CAMTA members who composed, they should be heard. And I was really, really impressed with what I heard because they sent me a lot of music to choose from. It was hard even to choose because the music is wonderful, and I think it will help to attract more attention to the composition, and you definitely can all use it in your regular repertoire, everyday work. I also want to read for you a little bit of the email I received last summer. Good morning, my name is Nancy Ostromensky. I have renewed my membership in CAMTA, and I'm a member of MTNA and Tucson Music Teachers Association in Arizona. I'm also one of the founders of the Roberta Savler piano competition. Boy, does that ever age me. I'm reaching out to see if perhaps my students here in Tucson would be able to participate in 2023 Roberta Savler competition. Parents of my students have no problem with traveling to location for events for their children, and we truly need to be able to participate in this kind of events. She's saying that there is nothing similar in Arizona, obviously. And so I think it's good to know, right? Okay, so as usual, with all your questions about repertoire or any other questions, you can always email me. And now we're all excited to listen to the new repertoire. Svetlana, your turn. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So for me, the high point of all of this, of course, is finding out about music by our friends and colleagues. That was really, really a wonderful experience. And the other songs, as always, Regina picks really amazing pieces, and every year I'm introduced to more music and more composers, so really cool. There's another sub-theme this year, it seems, which is music by Ukrainian composers and or about Ukrainian culture, very appropriately, as I don't know if you guys follow like we do, but it seems that the Russian occupational forces have been withdrawn from Kherson, so that's really good news. We're hoping that more news like that will come each day. So we're going to start with one of these Ukrainian composers, Samuil Makapar. Let's see how to work this. Yay, there he is. Kind of handsome fellow. wrote a very great deal of pedagogical music. I use quite a few pieces, although this one is new to me, the one we're about to hear. Kind of like Kabalevsky, of the same variety, where the music is terribly attractive, not terribly difficult, and always has a pedagogical purpose. So the piece on this level, The Blacksmith, actually the Russian translation, the direct translation would be in a smithy. So you get to hear the sounds and sort of an imitation of the blacksmith doing their thing. I think the kids would really enjoy the whole martellato experience. So let me play it. It's totally fun and not especially difficult, mainly because so much of the piece is repeats. So the pedal is a concern for children this age. A lot of my little ones can't reach the pedals, and the pedal extender is just a nightmare. I mean, it works or it doesn't work, and I've spent like half of some lessons on the floor trying to adjust it to no use. So I tried the piece without pedal, it does work. So that's kind of good to know. So then we go on to the Baroque piece from the selected pieces, which by John Pachelbel. Good to know he wrote more than, you know, the canon. Bless him, yes. I think this piece is probably the easiest one from this level. Both musically and technically, emotionally, all of that. Probably a good idea to tell the kids that a gavotte is a Baroque dance. There's so many videos on YouTube of people in period costumes doing the moves. It's exciting, and it kind of helps the kids get into the spirit. Obviously, ornaments on the piano are much more difficult than they were ever meant to be on the harpsichord. They can be omitted if they cause trouble, or you can do fewer repetitions. Another difficulty for this age group is the octaves. So kids up until 9 sometimes can't reach an octave, sometimes even more. I suppose the easiest thing is to just play one of the tunes. I wouldn't break them. I don't think it sounds that nice, but it can be a choice. So I don't know if you'll notice, but I changed the rhythm of one of the measures, which is measure number 5. It says, which is harmonically highly suspicious to me. I don't think that's correct. I think that's how it needs to go. The dynamics are, of course, editorial. They're kind of fun, but of course they can be changed as well. So moving on to our next composer from the classical period, and this is Johann Christian Bach. He's one of Bach's sons, the one of the 4 that became more famous than Papa Bach himself. This is the English Bach. He is famous not just in his own right, but as the inspiration, the teacher of Mozart. I've studied some of his sonatas, and you can see where Mozart lifts pages and pages of them. It's really kind of amazing. Mozart just changes a few things to make them better, but there's like just wholesale theft going on because, you know, good composer. So what's important in this little piece is to treat it not as a Baroque piece, but as a classical one, meaning that lots of elegance in the phrasing that is much less terraced and much more rounded. Right. There are some specific issues in this particular edition, which I'll discuss in a moment after playing. Is the way the ornaments are realized in the score. As you can see in the pink, no, that just doesn't make any sense the way the score does it. I'm quite partial to the way I do it, but I think you can do it in any way that sounds right to you. Other difficulties are Alberti bass. I mean, we've grown pianists, we think Alberti bass is like the easiest thing to do. It just kind of plays itself. But it's remarkable how difficult it is for young children, and especially how difficult it is for them to keep it quiet, and especially since it sits in the super loud register. So I usually go through this whole explanation with all the kids about how the pianos have changed a very great deal since the time this was written. This used to be the soft register, this used to be the loud register. It's pretty much the exact opposite on the modern piano. So if you were to sit down and play this piece on Christian's fortepiano, and you use the same amount of force in both hands, a really beautiful thing would come out. If you do it on a modern piano, you get, you know, which nobody wants to hear. So we have to work super hard on the balance between the hands. And as usual, ornaments, whether you do it the way they're written or the actual trills, are difficult. And once again, I say it's better to just drop them unless they're melodic, than make them too loud or too awkward. I think scaring children with ornaments is kind of unnecessary. So the magic piece on this level is by Cornelius. You notice I've discovered how to do transitions, so now everyone has to suffer along with me, because I'm pretty much going through all of them, as you will see. Anyways, Cornelius Gurlitt is somebody we know and love as one of the greatest pedagogical composers of all time, really. And this piece is just gorgeous, the bolero, but also very difficult. I think both musically and technically. I think it is probably the most difficult one on this level, but incredibly lovely. But once again, kids being told you're going to play something called the bolero, go, what is that? So it probably makes sense to show them the bolero is a dance. Once again, YouTube is full of beautiful bolero performances. So here's something, you know, that I found right away under the name of bolero. So you know it's Spanish. It has some of that spirit. It has a lilt, rhythmically speaking. So let me play the piece and then we'll discuss some of the specific difficulties. Isn't it remarkable for such a short little piece, but filled with various difficulties? So the balance between the hands, one more time, is a big issue. This time we don't just have a melody and an accompaniment, we actually have three layers. We have bass note, we have the little eighth notes, and we have the right hand melody. It's kind of a really big deal for the stage group. The rhythm, like with every dance, there is a lilt inside the rhythm. That's separate from the rubato that I did. So a lilt means that the time is not equally divided inside the measure. So we've got 3, 4, and we have 6, 8 notes, but they're not equal to each other. I think you've noticed how I prolonged the first one. It gives it that Spanish kind of thing, ole. It's fun. Other difficulties are sustaining the long notes and holding on to them, while also not sitting on this stuff. I think is going to cause some issues for many children. And then there's this whole middle section with the dialogue. There's so many fun ways of doing it. You can have the kids, I suppose, design what is the conversation. He said, she said. Are they arguing? Are they repeating? Who wins? That can be so much fun to do. So a marvelous, marvelous piece. And then, speaking of marvelous, the next piece on the level is the first one by our friends and colleagues. This is Chris Goldston's piece. So let's get to him. So I absolutely loved Chris's website, so you're getting like a screenshot from that, because I think that's so cool, isn't it? And here's the piece itself. The piece is really quite long and has all sorts of difficulties that we'll discuss in a moment. Let me play it. Gorgeous, no? Really fun. But once again, pedal throughout. Here we cannot do without pedal. So hopefully whoever you give it to is either very comfortable with the pedal extenders or can reach, or is maybe a little bit older. Also full of octaves, all these guy composers who don't understand about, small hands. I'll be complaining about that as we proceed, yes.
I talked to Chris about it directly. He allowed to use single notes instead of octaves.
No, of course, I mean, we have no choice. But, you have to be careful. The Sonata Sonatina Festival just happened in NWA. Right? I got back, so one of my kids got a silver medal because she couldn't reach octaves and did single notes, and the judge objected. Actually wrote about it. I could not believe my eyes. I was actually in absolute shock. Whatever, she'll get another gold elsewhere, but she's a good girl. But yeah, can't you see that hand can't? Whatever, judging is, very, very individual. Anyways, so other difficulties in this piece, or opportunities, is that so many things repeat, and doing them differently could be really fun. If the child is mature enough, you can start talking about building overall structure, building to climaxes, as opposed to treating each section in itself. Rubato is always a difficult subject with somebody to whom it doesn't come naturally, but I think in this piece it's easy because you can hear how the beats are divided. You can push and pull, I think, more readily in a piece like this than where the rhythm is complex. Every piece provides learning opportunities, but anyway, so with this, we can proceed to level B. Oh, isn't it a really cool transition? So once again, we start with a Russian composer, but a Ukrainian theme. I actually, it's remarkable, it shows you how old I am. I actually met him. I should play it at a concert for one of his big birthdays back in my native Kyiv. So that was really exciting. Of course, I was so scared I don't remember anything except being scared. But, truly great composer. Right? So this is from a bunch of variations. I teach, this one is kind of new to me, but I teach some of the others from this set a lot because they give so much opportunity for learning precise articulation, for understanding how phrasing works, right? For understanding how a composer's imagination works. So I'll try to model through. This is no longer easy. Actually, some of these variations are kind of nasty. Totally adorable, no? Each variation, however, is difficult. It presents it presents its own technical difficulties. I think the hardest one is the double notes one. I mean, that's a difficult technique. I mean, you're going to get a lot, right? And the solutions to this are not easy. I've found that when a student can hear that the notes are not together, that in some percentage of the students, their subconscious will simply reorganize their muscles. So that's maybe a third of the students. All you have to do is ask them, is this good or is this yucky? If they hear that it's yucky, then next one will be good. But as I said, that's about a third. The other 2/3, no. They either can't hear it or they can't fix it. So my general solution is we try hearing that top note is as louder. This way, even if they're not totally together, they kind of sound together-ish. So at least we're getting somewhere. And you can also, because it's usually the top note that is late, as we know from practice. Another difficulty, as in every variation set, is playing Find the Subject. So what I've gone through a couple of them and just colorized the subject notes, the melody itself. It's fun to do. The kids seem to like it. I already have somebody working on this, and honestly, I thought, how can you miss the subject notes? But she did. Oh yeah, big time. So we had to actually go through with the highlighter and mark them. After that, learning goes much more easily. Okay, so our next piece is something that has quite a storied pedigree. So this will be the Folia by Alexander Scarlatti. So Folia is a very ancient sort of dance melody. It was made famous, of course, not by Scarlatti, but by Corelli, and then through him by Rachmaninoff in the Corelli variations. But the melody is the same. The melody is very simple. It's more of a chord progression, really, than a tune. So everybody and their grandmother made some kind of variations on it. But originally, a folia is a folk dance. So here's a little example, again, from online. Again, probably worth looking at what it is. It's kind of a folksy dance. You see how the people's costumes aren't as fancy as they would be at a ball for dancing a minuet, for example. So here's the piece. The idea in this piece is, as you can see, the texture is the same overall, a very large area with internal repeats. So the idea is to make as much fun out of it as you can find. So I'm going to play with some ideas, and then I'll show you more ideas in case you maybe don't like the ideas that I've got. Who knows? Obnoxious as possible, some of my creative choices, just so they would be audible. But so many other options are possible. So here I'm suggesting maybe bringing out. You can do whatever you want. You can bring out the left hand. You can do it, as Nicholas Rubinstein used to say, one way when it's sunny and a different way when it rains. So this is a piece that need never be born, which is kind of important because we're entering that interesting age now with this, where we have to keep them occupied and busy. So, is that the cutest thing on? I'm so pleased with that one. I know. I'm like a 3-year-old in a candy store whenever a program does new stuff. I'm pretty sure these have been available for like the last 10 years, but they're new to me. So there we go. So the handsome fellow is Friedrich Kuhlau. We've all, taught his. No, he's not bad. I don't know. I kind of like the big, what do you call them, chops?
All right.
But anyways, his sonatinas are fantastic, right? And the piece that is on the solo, here's a particularly gorgeous edition of it. Can't use it to teach, but I couldn't find a freebie online, so except for this one. So it is what it is. So the point of this piece is you could spend every lesson saying, well, I told you to practice your scales and your arpeggios and your broken chords, and then you wouldn't be having this problem, right? Because really, the piece is made up of these building blocks that we've all been trying to, pound into the little heads for years. So here's just a little bit. It's actually quite long, but none of the bits are particularly difficult, but they do add up. I mean, there's a lot of practicing needed in this one. And as always in the classical period pieces, this indescribable concept of charm is needed, because you don't want for it to be, wooden where that's not what we're looking for, even though technically correct, right? Okay, but fun piece nevertheless. And then one of my favorite pieces from this entire competition level is the romantic piece for this level by Niels God. This piece is completely new to me, this elegy, and I'm finding it really quite difficult. It probably is the most difficult piece from level B, but it really asks for a lot of maturity, both technically and especially musically and emotionally. But I must say, not necessarily a delight to play. one forward now. There's so many difficulties in the elegy. Here, let's go back to it. So we have textural problems in the writing, two voices very often, and graduating them properly is quite difficult. Plus, sometimes there are holds for the long notes. Sometimes there are staccatos. You have to be very, very careful. And then there's the concept of rubato, which I guess they have to know at this level. But does it come easy? It does not. This piece does not work played straight. You don't get any of this like emotional rush of each phrase. It doesn't sound like an elegy if it's played straight. And pedal has to be really quite careful, but hopefully we're talking about children who are maybe older and more mature for this one, right? So as I said, a lovely, lovely piece, but started now. I mean, that thing is hard. So now we're going to Yaroslav Golubiowski's piece. So I asked him all about it, and because I couldn't understand what the meaning of 10 o'clock was, and he says it's from a cycle of pieces that are by the hour, and because this one is 10 o'clock, it represents when you're in the morning and have full of energy. I do not know how much coffee he drinks in the morning. A 10 o'clock hour is not one when I'm energetic personally. It's where I'm trying to think, like, do I go with 1 cup a day, or do I just do what I want, which is have my 4th one? But whatever. So this minuet is really very adorable. To me, you know what it sounds like? It sounds like a music box. So once again, it has extremely large reaches, more than an octave. I've had to rewrite quite a bit of it. It's possible to rewrite it, so I'm happy to show anybody personally my sort of decisions of which hand takes what. Because I'm a large person, but I have a midget hand, and a 9th is really difficult for me, which means that for half the children it's also difficult. So you will see on the second page, in the middle of line number 4 on the second page, is where I can't reach anything. Not in the middle, towards the end. There's no way that I can reach any of these intervals. So I'm just taking a bunch of them with the other hand. It does work out, but it takes thinking, and I'm doing a lot of like crawling around 5/4 to be able to get these. So I would suggest finding somebody with a larger hand to play it to avoid a lot of these issues. Spoken by somebody who likes to play, Rachmaninoff, Stravinsky, and Busoni, despite having a baby hand. But anyway, and then I complain. I complain a lot, but then I play it. It is what it is, isn't it? So let's go on to level C. Now we're talking kind of big people. The level of requirements here is much higher now. So I'm to the point where I'm literally having trouble playing some of this stuff. And so you'll hear only parts of these pieces because Normally, you know, I do a big concert for these things, but I got a phone call 2 weeks ago from a conductor saying, oh yeah, let's do the Mozart C minor concerto on 6 weeks notice, which something I've never played before. So I'm having a lot of fun practicing that. So some of these bagatelles and other pieces got underlearned. So Alexander Chernin, despite the Russian name, is a Russian-American composer. His music is actually very interesting for the 20th century. The harmonic language is somewhat new, but it's always pianistic, and it's always very easy to hear, and not necessarily easy to play, but easy to understand. So these two bagatelles are different in mood and character. As you can see, the first one, which is number 9, is sort of not as fast as you think, because then you get into trouble. Let me play that one marvelous piece, huh? It evokes to me so much visual imagery. I think that would help the students as well. I think of it as like movie music, really, or maybe video game music, or something like that. The main difficulty here is staccato. As you notice, every single note here really is staccato. And staccato is hard. Because what kids usually think of as staccato is something like this. They think the higher they get up, the more staccato they're going to get. So instead, what they're going to get is a bunch of splats, right? Which are not even short and don't have an edge on them like a staccato. So let me give you my usual spiel about staccato. So normally, any articulation has 2 components. How you get on the note, so the attack, and how you get off the note, which is the release, right? But in the case of staccato, you have to kind of tell yourself that there's no attack at all, that the only thing you really care about is the release in this particular piece. So that helps a lot, especially if you like doing finger staccato, where you start on the surface of the key, and you think like you're flicking a bug off or something. So that's one kind of staccato that gives good results. And because you're staying on the surface of the key, it's safe. You're not going to splat because you're not coming up. I find that this is a little bit slow for me for this piece. So I use a different kind of staccato where I think of it as poking. It still has the appropriate edge. It's not quite as short, but it's faster and it's safer and it still works. The only staccato I won't accept for this piece is any kind of like a wrist staccato or an arm staccato because they are slow, they are not safe, and they don't give us exactly the kind of really sharp, you know, like needle kind of sound that we want. Okay, the second bagatelle is moving like the wind. It's extremely fast. I'll play about half of it because it gets very hard in the second half. Slow practice and good luck. Some of the stuff on the page that I'm skipping, it has really big jumps and really big chords. And that's another one, one of those pieces where my admonition is start now. Now, this is hard. I mean, really, really difficult piece, but it's so fun. So if you have kids with good fingers, they are just gonna eat this one up. And then we go on to the Baroque piece. And those of you who know me know how much I love Bach. Look at that picture. I found that floating. Apparently, that's the modern reconstruction of what Johann Sebastian actually looked like. I think that's absolutely remarkable. Love him, love him. And here's the manuscript. What gorgeous writing, huh? I mean, everything about Bach is just beautiful. It's just that good. So, when we talk about the sinfonias, as well as the inventions, of course we know that the main difficulty that we're supposed to get from it is learning how to play polyphonic contrapuntal pieces. But each one of them is more than that. Each one of them has emotional meaning. Each one paints some kind of a picture, and which makes it much more fun to play than a dry polyphony exercise. So the particular one that's required for this level, one of my favorites, is C minor, one of my favorite starter ones actually, because it's not as hard as some of them, is actually a Sicilian, which is an ancient dance. The reason I point this out is because very many performances of this piece, which is as far away from a Sicilian as you can get. So here is the Sicilian is meant to be kind of slow, right? So here you can read this. The Sicilian is a musical style or genre often included as a movement within larger pieces of music, starting in the Baroque period. It's a slow 6/8, or in this case 12/8 time, with lilting rhythms. Remember my little spiel about lilting rhythms? Here they become so important, making it somewhat resemble a slow jig, and it's usually in a minor key, right? I have no idea what happened to the font there, but anyway. So why don't I play it for you, and then we'll discuss it, or at least try to play it for you. When I said easier starter, it doesn't mean easy, does it? I think we should talk about how, at least in my opinion, one should approach a contrapuntal piece. We'll talk about it later when we talk about the fugue. But hopefully you heard at least something of my musical choices. For example, I always, in all Bach contrapuntal pieces, I try to make sure that I treat the subject differently than its variations in the episodes where there is no subject. So there's always variety of some kind. But as I said, we'll talk about that a little bit later. So what I thought would be interesting is showing you the different editions that are floating around internet and you should definitely not use. So on the left is my favorite bugaboo, which is Czerny editions. Kids bring them to me all the time. They have wrong notes. They have very suspicious articulation. They also have really excellent fingerings. So you can use them, but don't show them to kids. I mean, really. So The edition in the middle is by my guy Federico Busoni, which you also unfortunately cannot use, even though he did so much for the cause of teaching Bach and reintroducing Bach to society. He usually has like pages and pages of really useful notes and comments, which I highly recommend. These editions are all on MSLP. But all the ornaments, as you can see, are wrong. I have no idea why he did that, because of course ornament charts were already very well known during his time. So no idea, as much as I love and respect him, no can do. However, the edition on the right that I found, where you can see each voice is written on its separate staff. Obviously you can't use it for playing from, but for study it's really quite interesting. What I have found, even my like adult transfer students, when I ask them to just, okay, let's take a Xerox copy and let's color the soprano yellow and the alto orange and the bass, I don't know, green, they can't do it. They literally cannot visually separate the voices when they're written in one hand. I mean, by their second one, they know how to do it. But having an edition like that to look at might help out a very great deal, so that the voices are really speaking to each other. But otherwise, there are so many excellent scholarly student editions available. I highly recommend one of those. What I don't recommend for students is any kind of an urtext edition. They're important for us for study. It's nice to know what's original and what's editorial. But a child who sees a trill and has no idea what the sign means will just be at a loss. So I think the best solution is some of those newer editions where editorial editions are like in gray, so you can tell what is from whom. However, I find that, especially for my transfer students, when they bring me Bach, when I finally convince them that Bach is not boring, and that yes, we must play some, they bring me editions that horrify me. And my opinion is, you think Bach is unplayable, or boring, or too hard, or terrible, or whatever it is your wrong opinion about it, is because of the annoying editions that you were using. And like, we must change that. And so then I get on my high horse, and things go good after that. The classical period piece on this level is so much fun. So Beethoven, of course, is known for his, I'm pleased with that. Yes, he is known for these huge symphonies and quartets and sonatas, and sometimes he just wants to have fun. So these little ecossaizes are a prime example of Beethoven having a ball. Might not have been sober when writing them, I swear to God. But whatever. So here's a little picture of a Scottish dance, which is what ecossaise is. There is absolutely nothing elegant, sweet, or nice about it. There's a lot of people jumping around like in skirts. The result is hilarious. Really, ecossaise is not always used in the period as a kind term. I mean, Scottish things were thought to be exotic, extreme, and uncouth, right? Kind of like, think haggis. I find it delicious, but most people, yeah. So this is Beethoven's treatment of ecossaise. So the important thing about this is understanding how the piece works. So there are 6 ecossaizes. Each one is followed by, by that thing that's in blue. You repeat it after each one. And I think this gives us scope for so much variety. I mean, knock yourself out doing different and hilarious stuff on each of them. So let me try some ideas, but you can literally do it differently each time you play it. as much contrast between each one as you like. It's technically somewhat tricky, as Beethoven usually is. The double notes particularly are unfortunate. Some of the jumps are unpleasant, but not insurmountable. With a little bit of a head start. The romantic piece here is by Felix Mendelssohn, and here's another one of those portraits that's supposed to represent what he looked like. He's of course one of those composers that died so tremendously young that it's truly horrifying to think about all the music we'd lost. They must have had something genetically wrong with the family. Fanny Mendelssohn, his sister, also died of a stroke extremely young. That was both of them. With extreme sadness. So the piece that we're going to work on is one of the songs without words. Even though this one is not titled a Venetian boat song, to my ear it very much is. So it's wonderful to hear the swaying of the water and the singing of the gondolier. The piece is difficult. I find it actually really quite difficult because you have to consider holding, you have to consider, rubato of course, but most importantly the balance between the outside voices and the internal eighth note. So let me play a little bit. Not easy, sometimes requires a lot of wiggling about and a stretch as usual. Nothing that I can't reach, which means a child this age should be able to reach it with no problem. Because I figure I have a hand the size of like a 12-year-old, so all good. And of course, shaping each phrase, considering that the rhythm is so straightforward, it's not easy to do. So instead of a boat song, we can have a march so easily. That's something to start working. And so that's another one of the pieces where I would encourage everybody to start right away, just as fast as possible. And what else? Breathing and rubato, right? Breathing between phrases. Always encourage students to sing the phrase. I know that it's impossible to make minds sing out loud, so I do the singing with the admonition that is, my singing is so beautiful that if you don't do it right, I'll sing again. And that seems to work really quite well. Another thing that I suggest is come up with words to the melody. They have to be secret words, the kind that if you told me you'd have to kill me, right? But they have to go in your own mind, and that way the melody speaks. Right? So these are my words of wisdom for that. And so now, Cynthia, would you like to play? No?
Nine.
So yeah, finding Cynthia's pictures online has been really quite interesting, but I think that's a gorgeous one. Yeah. Yeah. So a tango. A tango is a dance that's very difficult to dance. Let's start with that. During my misspent youth, I took a class. So that's what I found out, that I cannot tell right from left. And also when the instructor tells you, don't worry honey, I won't drop you. He absolutely will drop you. So I don't do dancing anymore because, it's just better like that for everybody. But a tango carries within it so much historical meaning There's just so many videos are available on the internet, but you have to be very choosy because, of course, the tango carries so much erotic feeling that you have to be careful which videos you want to show your kiddies. But I mean, there's certainly plenty available there. I'm trying to see where is. No, I don't. I thought I had an obnoxious picture, but I think none of the ones I found were quite inappropriate indeed. Still, you have to think about the lilt in the tango. That's all important, right? So yum, da-dum, bum, bum, right? So if you can hear the way, as I said, my beautiful singing, it's the third beat actually that gets prolonged, and a little bit of the first one. So the division is very much not even. So the tango is kind of in the style of Piazzolla, right? I think that must have been your inspiration, I'm thinking. I'll play about half of it. As the only composer present, I think to stand out and think about it is so much fun. I think this is going to be, if you play all the pieces to the students, I have a feeling this is the one that's going to get picked. Not that I allow my students too much choice, but if you were to do so, I think so. Once again, octaves galore, so it has to be somebody who can easily reach them. They're not difficult like they will be in the following kind of pieces, but still they are very much there. Okay, moving on to our big people, level D. The required pieces here are preludes by Robert Lushinsky. So we have a big Eastern European theme going here, right? Polish-American composer. I adore his music. I've played a lot of his flute music especially. I mean, as a pianist. Everything's very rhythmic, has an edge, a lot of fun to play. Really sounds like movie music. Not that that works on kids anymore, you can say like video game music, right? The preludes are not easy at all. Also, once again, written for a bigger hand than mine, so I've made some adaptations. If anybody needs ideas for somebody, this will happen on the third page, which I don't think you can see here. But stuff I absolutely, I only have on the first page. But on the third page, there's definitely stuff I could not reach. So I've rewritten it in a different hand. All right, let's try. Isn't it hilarious? And very, very not easy. But not nearly as difficult as the next one. So somebody who has naturally good octaves, running octaves, this is easily doable. I'm not one of those people, sadly, as you're about to hear. Absolutely fun, and definitely not for somebody who is shy or retiring. And this does not work unless you give it all the explosive personality that you can muster. I mean, how often do we legitimately get to bang, right? Here, yeah. All the stuff you've been keeping in. Oh yeah, teacher annoyed you, go for it. If parents have grounded you, go for it. Yeah. So a lot of fun. And now we proceed to do some more Bach, as promised. So no more pictures of Bach, because I couldn't find the one where he sticks his tongue out, so that's why. So we have the E major prelude and fugue. This is another one of my favorite starters, because as preludes and fugues go, it is not just physically manageable, but manageable intellectually, right? So the prelude is another Sicilian, this is called. Let me do at least half it. Let's see how it goes. dry, unemotional, and uninteresting playing, and, Bachmanian. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle, where you can shape the phrases, you can be expressive, because after all, so many of my transfer students say, well, harpsichord couldn't do dynamics. Well, hello, harpsichord was not the only instrument. And in fact, we know from Nicholas Forkel, who was Bach's biographer, that Bach wouldn't even listen to you as a pianist until he heard you play on the clavichord, which is the direct precursor of the piano, really, where you could do a lot more dynamics than we can do on the piano. You could crescendo a single note, you could do vibrato, you could be in intimate contact with the music. So I think all of these stories about how you got or Borsia. I mean, really, right? So let's not. But now I'd like to talk in some detail about the fugue, as promised. This is one of those fugues that can be used, to teach a class on fugue writing because it's straightforward. Right? So in every fugue, we start by looking for the subject. Come on, subject. Here we go. The subject is cool, right? It consists of two parts. It consists of that very distinct da, and then a bunch of runny 16th notes. Okay, so that covers quite a bit of a piece. It's quite clear how to play it. Make sure that you really go up, down, right? And then there's a distinctly audible rest where Bach puts it. There's more cool stuff because you can see how much of this is left without color. So some of the more hilarious things that happen is extra da-das. I think Bach meant them as a kind of a joke, or like what my son says, a troll, right? He's trolling us into thinking there's going to be another subject, and it's just not. It's just the subject head. But it's hilarious. It's like answering the subject, and so much fun to look at, and still a lot of area that needs explanation. So to continue our understanding of a fugue, we look at the counter subject. This counter subject of runny 16th notes is derived pretty much exactly from the back end of the subject. But the question becomes, do we treat it the same way, or do we do something different? In my opinion, in the subject itself, articulation should be almost non-legato, almost. But when the same material happens during the episodes, it can be much stickier, much more overlapped, so that we know, your listener knows, here we are in the area where there's subject, and in the area where there is no subject. And it gives us so much variety. But even in a small field like that, we have more gifts from Bach. So look at the fascinating walking bass in the left hand. That's the new orange stuff that just opened up. I think of it as kind of like a double bass in a jazz club. But that means it cannot be a short staccato because that's not what a pizzicato sounds like on the bass. And it cannot be too fast because you can't imagine double bass doing that. It's a walking bass for a reason. And finally, one more fascinating little thing, which tends to go together with the walking bass, is a series of appoggiaturas. The most commonly used expressive device really in all ages and eras, but especially so for Bach. And so now we've got the whole thing covered, and let's see if I can actually play. Absolutely fabulous piece. I'm sorry, my iPad decided to go down in the middle of it. The classical period piece on this level is by Haydn, right? And I think it's actually the most difficult piece on this level, even though it looks like oh, there's barely any notes, but boy, are they uncomfortable and twisty and weird. And with all that, you have to have perfect articulation and again that ineffable quality of charm. Am I running very late? Yes? Okay, I'll play fast. doesn't pay off, does it? It's a very difficult piece. Listen to this next passage. Did you see how much wiggling I had to do to be able to get around it? And mentally, so confusing. And the piece is long. Charming and wonderful and beautiful, but long and hard. So another admonition to start now. So now I'm going to start talking very fast indeed. Because the romantic piece on this level by Grieg is one we all know and love. And maybe, again, if you play all the pieces to the students, maybe everybody's choice. This is the March of the Dwarfs, Trolls, different translations say different things. Once again, you need excellent flying octaves for this guy, which I also don't have, but I'll give it my best. Maybe worth studying just to get octaves to be better. As I said, for me, that's not something that comes naturally. And finally, we come to what is probably the most romantic piece on this level, and that is Junichi's work. Finding Junichi's pictures on the internet was pretty much like that's from his website. So yeah, but it's a good photo. Okay, so the Prelude, as I said, is a truly romantic piece in most ways. I find the stretches to be actually actively painful at times. Junichi's got a paw on him, oh my goodness. But you'll hear the piece has got all the qualities of, like, let's say, a big Chopin nocturne, and a good preparatory piece for that, I think. romanticism, a very lovely piece on which to learn how to make a forte sound that is rich instead of obnoxious, right? Very different from the Greek, for example. But the left hand is constantly in this position. So that's the wording. I found myself when I was first learning that actually was starting to get twinges from the stretch. So I had to like stop, shake out, whatever. So you gotta watch students. Once tendinitis starts, it doesn't heal. But still, for a larger hand, a piece well worth it to get that feel from the grander sort of expression. So that's very lovely, and congratulations again to all of our composers. I'm so glad I was introduced to all of your music. I'm guessing some of you guys are watching. So thank you so much for sharing this music with us. And thank you, Regina, for introducing all of that to us as well. And I don't know if we have time for a Q&A.
I don't think we are running out of time. Thank you, Svetlana. It was a wonderful presentation, beautiful playing,
Thank you.
and also very entertaining. Plus, thank you so much for researching and putting so much time in practicing and presenting the pieces. Congratulations to the CAMTA composers. I was very impressed and proud of you all. Congratulations to Regina on selecting all these pieces. It's a beautiful repertoire, so I hope lots of our students, of our teachers will prepare for this competition. Svetlana, thank you again so much. Also, being online, the recording will be posted soon on our playlist. And Cynthia, do you have
something here? Very briefly, Regina. So I was at the ISMTA conference.
sit down here because it's
Okay. And I was very glad to be able to accept this.
Aww.
So remember the year.